And good evening, everybody. Nice to be here again. I was saying to Trevor, I feel I've achieved something tonight because I found the back way into the car park. And I've been coming here for a long time. I've never actually worked out how to do it, and I have now. So
this is Centranthus.
thank you. Well, I don't know what Centranthus is. It looks like a cacti of some sort, but it makes for an interesting subject.
Hang on, guys. Can we?
Okay, makes for an interesting subject. I like the way that it's been treated. Actually, got quite a flat paper here, and it just brings out the tones and the textures in the flower, particularly, and the cactus beneath it quite effectively. I like the way you've layered this against a black ground, complementary colours. People don't always choose the best colours in their background layers, and I think to have something that complements and works with the subject, as this does, is a good choice. The greens there very much pick up the greens in the vegetation as well, and of course the two colours there, the greens and the oranges, pretty well complementary colours on the colour wheel, not far off it, so that harmonises visually as you look at it. I like the space that you've given around here, and it's an interesting still life. It's quite cleverly done. It has almost like a slight sort of alien effect, doesn't it? It does look a bit sort of a alien-like. Your lighting, I think you've handled pretty well as well. No dark shadowed areas, but enough lighting just to bring out some highlights and some sort of brighter areas, particularly on the top of the flowers there. So yeah, I like that. A well done image, but we'll move on. Thank you.
This is a broad-bodied chaser.
Popular subject, particularly this time of year. There's lots of them buzzing around along with these and the damselflies as well. Yeah, they don't stand still for very long, do they? So it's difficult perhaps to get your picture. Crucial to me, pictures like this, it needs to be sharp. You need to have the detail there. And you've done a pretty good job here, actually. It's pretty sharp in the body. On the wings, I can see the delicacy, the tracery of the wings quite effectively, and the detail around the head. It's not too bad, just getting a little bit soft, perhaps just as the head goes away through the picture. You've got a very precise focus here. It's a little bit more on the front and just gets a little bit soft towards the back there. Maybe the dragonfly itself is a little bit central in your picture. It does divide it, doesn't it? Quite sort of 50-50. Maybe it'd been better perhaps a little bit to one side. And would perhaps a portrait format have been stronger than a landscape format, just to emphasize the height of the dragonfly? I feel that it's a little bit cramped, particularly at the bottom there. I'd like to see a little bit more space around it. So maybe if you've got a big enough file, try recropping it as a portrait format, and I think you'll have a stronger picture. Competent use of depth of field, though, throwing the background out of focus there quite readily, but we still feel it's part of the natural environment. The greens there, it's just lost in focus, but you can see its vegetation. So, you know, you're quite happy to think that this subject is in its natural habitat, and that is to the strength of the picture as well. Okay, thank you. You can all hear me okay, I presume? Yeah.
I didn't put the microphone on, did I? Bluebells for the future.
Do you want to, or are you happy as it is?
I'll just do that.
Work like Vermeer uses yellow and blue, and it is effective. It does catch the eye. It's quite delicate, actually. Particularly the central flowers in bloom there. I like the sort of the softness of the delicacy of it, the arty feel of it. I think works quite well. It has a composition. I like the way you have the central one there, and the other two just giving some symmetry to the picture. Just they both bend over a little bit to the left and the right. So I think your composition has been well thought of.
you've blended this against another background layer, which I must admit is I find a little bit confusing. I think it's other elements of vegetation, but there's no color in that. You've desaturated that. And I think it jars a little bit with me as I look at it. And you've given us a bit of a reverse vignette on the outside here, just not to darken down the outside to draw the eye in, but you've lightened the outside, which can work. But here I think perhaps you've lost a little bit too much detail, particularly in this flower on the right-hand side there. I know it's that artistic, delicate feel about it, but to me, if I'm looking at the harmony of the picture overall, this edge is just a little bit too soft compared to the tones and the textures there. And there's a lot of this about this picture I think works well, and I think there are elements that could be improved in it. Bearing in mind that it's only my subjective personal opinion. It's not the be-all and end-all of it. It's the way I actually view the picture. So yeah, I think so bits of it work okay. It's that background. I keep coming back to that background, and I don't quite know how that fits in with the picture as well as I would like it to. Okay, thank you.
It's an evening snowdrop.
Yeah, how do they get a good picture out of a single bloom? You see fields of snowdrops, fields of bluebells, all these things. You try to get your pictures, and it becomes harder each year you try to do it, I think. But to isolate a single one like this is a very bold piece of photography. But to do it as well as this is, I think it's a very competent piece of photography as well. I think the light really works particularly well here. There's a luminance to this picture, isn't there? It's like a lamp, sort of lighting up the darkness. There's sort of backlighting just coming through the texture of the bluebell there. Perfect specimen. I think that works well. Having all that detail in the texture, I think works really well. Your lighting, you've not burnt any of that out, which would be quite easy to do. I don't count this as being burnt out. It's just although it is pure white, it's on the inside of the lantern, if you like, and I think it works very effectively in the picture. Again, a good use of depth of field, isolating that background very, very effectively. I'd like to also see this picture with a bit of moisture on it as well. If you carry a little spray can around you, take another picture and just spray it as well, because it would be a different feeling to it, and it would be interesting to see. But yeah, I think it's really good to see such a simple subject so well portrayed. The lighting picks up the stalk very, very effectively as well. My one little area that I might have considered could be a bit annoying is just the tip of the stalk there. Whether it's worth just toning that down a little bit, or even cloning some of this green into there, perhaps on a reduced percentage, about 10%, something like that, just to darken it down a fraction. But I'll hold that one back, please.
I think this one doesn't have a title.
Okay. We'll call it Misty Dawn then, because it is a misty dawn. It's very atmospheric, actually. And it just shows that it's worth getting up early in the morning to get this atmospheric feel with the mist there. You go along an hour later, 2 hours later, and you've got a picture of the river, you've got some birds flying around, and it's okay. But it doesn't have the feel that this picture does. And this picture has a very strong atmosphere to it. I very much enjoy the way that the sun diffusing through the mist here is picked up by the surface of the river there. Quite a bit of movement on the water, isn't there? And that bit of movement on the water gives a bit of energy to the picture, a bit of a dynamics to the picture. Simple composition, but it works well. You know, where are you going to stand to take this picture? Well, if you get the picture from here, running in from the bottom right-hand corner, you've got some very, very strong diagonals, but they flow through the picture. They've got little curves to them, so the compositioning there they work well. I like the stop point halfway through that bush on the left-hand side. It gives you somewhere to pause as you look at the picture, look at that, and then you move on through the picture to this sort of disappearing background of the mist and the perspective just getting lost in the background there. There's a hint of a building just at the end as well, so there's a bit of a story, a bit of narrative to the picture. We'll keep that one, please.
This is multi-trucking.
Okay. You often have a look at pictures like this just to try and work out exactly how it was taken. Sort of multiple exposure, I think. And you've put it all together to give us this quite abstract, almost sort of ghostly feeling of this truck or several trucks. It could be sort of progressing in a staccato way through the picture. And that does draw us through the picture because there is some movement from front going through to the back there. Bit of diminishing perspective as well with the different heights of the lampposts just draw us again effectively through the picture. It is, I mean, it's an exercise, isn't it? And I think the photographer's done well to produce something a little bit different. I do find it a little bit busy, a little bit visually confusing. I'm not quite sure exactly what the photographer is trying to tell me in this picture or to tell us in this picture. And I appreciate to the photographer, it's very obvious they're saying, this is what I'm trying to say, but I'm not sure that's translated into the picture as well as it might have done. So I admire the technique. I think the initiative is good to do something like this. But I will pass on it. Thank you.
It's bright and beautiful.
Single bloom, very, very carefully photographed. The light is well controlled. The detail in the text has been brought out very competently in the petals. Colors are not oversaturated. I think the bright sort of depth of orange and yellow in the middle there gives us a good strong center visual point, and then you've got the softer tones of the outside of the petals, which then sort of bleed into the background. So I think the choice of background here is good. The colors of that is quite harmonious to the flower and doesn't clash with the center of the stamen and the pistil either. So I think that works well. Compositionally, yeah, just having the little bit of a diagonal coming in here from the bottom left and continuing that diagonal up through the petal there. It's the way you present it, isn't it? Are we going to put it straight in the picture? Are we going to put it on a diagonal? On the diagonal, it's a stronger picture. So that works okay. Just about enough space around the image, maybe a little bit tight at the top there. I think what happens quite often is people see the picture on the screen, there's loads of space around it. Then they print it, and of course they've lost a little bit all the way around with the printing. So if you're printing it, something to remember, you do need a little bit of extra space to go behind your mounting board. And I think this one's just lost a little bit there, which I'd like to see a fraction more space. But the details there, and yeah, I think it's a beautiful picture, but we will carry on. Thank you.
This is coming into Corfe Castle Station.
If I look carefully, I can see the peregrines nest in the top of the castle there. No. Well, I did see them on the Springwatch yesterday, anyhow. Yeah, it's very evocative, isn't it? Steam engines and you know, given the age of most of us, I know some of you are younger. You go back to steam engines when we were young, and yeah, there's memories in photograph and nostalgia, and I think it's a powerful part of photography to be able to evoke that nostalgia and bring it to the fore. Yeah, this is well photographed, some good detail, beautiful detail actually in the engine. I know it's under load, but it does seem a little bit static. You don't quite get that energy that you like to see with the steam coming out of the side of the train there, and just a bit more sort of yeah, energy, I think would really lift the picture, particularly because the steam above is being lost against the darkest clouds as well above. So you don't quite get that feeling of a train in motion. Of course, it may be because there's a red signal there, so it might actually be waiting to move, to be fair. Part of this picture I'm finding is a little bit strong. It does draw my eye to it, and it's this bit down here. If you take a 50-50 down the middle of the picture there's some quite subtle tones with the greens there in the different sort of textures. But this bright golden gate is quite a strong color. It's well photographed. It's in a very strong position, so the eye does get drawn to it a little bit. Potentially, you might have considered maybe just desaturating that slightly, just drawing it down slightly. Maybe this would work well as a monochrome image. It would work with the sort of the nostalgia feeling of it, monochrome with a sepia toning. Then we would lose that distraction of that yellow. I think that might make that a slightly stronger picture. But having said that, it's still being well photographed. And I like the fact you've got an angle that you can go back through the train. It's not two-dimensional. You've got this slight side three-quarters view, which draws very, very readily through the picture and gives some depth to the image. Thank you.
There's a honeybee feeding
Beautifully in focus. I don't know if you photo stack this or if it's just a very, very good aperture and you've got a good depth of field, but I can't see any drop off in focus from front to back of the honeybee itself, particularly sharp around the eyes there and around the front and the body where you want to see it sharp. I like the fact you've got the detail of the pollen being collected underneath the bee there. So you have a narrative, you have a story, it's natural behavior. Which is working well. And it would be very easy with this bright sunny day, bright flowers like this, to get drawn away from the subject by the bright white areas, catching the light quite strongly. You can see how strong the light is because of the shadows that these are creating on the petals beneath. So that could have been a problem, but I think you've handled that well because the exposure and the detail on the bee itself is so well done. And the background could have been very, very confusing, couldn't it? There's a lot of blossom behind, but it's a natural behavior. It's where it is. It has to be there. And so what you do with it, yeah, you diffuse it at the depth of field, you tone it down slightly. Looks like it maybe sort of just been darkened down on the edges a little bit there, just to draw the eye into the middle. So we'll keep that one, please.
This is F-16 takeoff.
Interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't think I've ever seen an F-16 in full sort of turbo afterburner so close to the ground like that, and it is obviously just taking off. So you wouldn't want me standing there taking a photograph, would you really? Yeah. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult with a jet plane to get this feeling of energy and movement. With a prop plane, you've got a blurred propeller. That's perfect. But these so often can look just pasted against the sky and just not really moving. But by having that disruption of the air behind, having this afterburner quite clearly invisible against the green background there, suddenly you know that this plane is, you can hear this, it's taking off now, and you can hear the volume of it. So I think, it would have been tempting to wait till it got against the sky and there's my picture of my plane. The story is much stronger, I think, down here, where you've got this background of the airfield, the heat haze of the day, and perhaps of the jet disruption of the air as well, is giving this lovely sort of diffused feeling on the buildings behind. They're not the most beautiful buildings in the world, but they're part of what's going on here. It's part of the airfield. And I think it all just works really, really well. So we'll keep that one, please.
There's 6 swans are swimming.
It's not Christmas yet. Yeah, great little collection of cygnets there, and they're just drifting their way through the water. A very pleasing capture of natural history, of natural behavior. Yeah, they don't pose very well, cygnets, do they? They're all over the place. But I think you just about managed to separate them pretty well. I like this one particularly here, the 4th one in from the left, because it's so well separated from the other 5. It becomes quite a strong subject. And I like the sort of the semi-reflections you've got in the base of the picture here as well. So there's some pictorial element coming into your natural history shot. You've got good detail in the birds themselves. All this soft downy plumage would be quite easy just for that to lose detail, but you've exposed for that and you've got the details on there. And I think, you've got enough space around this that you feel they're in their natural environment where you want them to be. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to buy everyone here a pen so they can write down the titles they need, so I can read them. This is Holden and Lawrence aboard the Barnes Racing bike and sidecar. Sorry about that.
They just run out of ink there. Right now.
Sorry, were you holding this?
No, thank you. Yeah, good example of panning. We've got this movement going through the picture here of the motorbike and sidecar. Really good sharp exposure on the bike itself. Lots of detail there. I like all this, all of the information that you get, the advertising, the writing, the reading. It's part of the story. It's part of the sports event. So I think that really is good, sharp and clear. maybe the subjects, I know they're not posing for you photographically, they're in a race. It's a little bit of a pity. I think that they sort of a little bit hidden behind the machine itself, particularly this chap at the back here. It's just the way it is. It doesn't make it a bad picture. It's just, I think it just drops the impact down a little bit. But I do think your panning here is good. You've got enough space, I think, for it to move into. We are a little bit tight on this side, especially because you've got a strong red there, strong red primary color. Your eye will go to it, and it's right on the edge of the frame and quite tight up against there. If you could put a little bit more canvas in the back there, I'm sure you've got it in your file. It would just give a little bit, just wouldn't be sitting on the edge quite so strongly there. Okay, thank you.
I'm being challenged tonight. This is when you hop into a pea field and can't remember what you came in there for. Written in pencil.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
No, it's a good picture, but I can't hold them all back. So we'll, yeah. Do you know, I've been doing photography for quite a few years now, and I've never got a picture of a hare. I've never really tried, to be honest, but I'd love to get a picture of a hare because I think they're such good photographic subjects. And as long as the title was, actually, I think it fits quite well with the subject. There's a degree of humor in this, isn't there? And he does look very much like he's got his hand on his chin there, thinking, why am I here? What am I doing? But you've got a very, very precise focus here. So you've got soft foreground, soft background, and then that focal plane right in the middle there, beautifully sharp of the hair itself. And I like the way that I don't want to see it all. I like the fact you've got half of it just coming out, protruding above, having a little look round. Plenty of space around it as well. A temptation could be just to crop tightly and look at the hair. But to me, I like the story as it is. There's the hair in the wide open spaces. Very alert, looking for danger as well. Not particularly worried about you as a photographer. But I imagine you've probably got quite a long lens on for this picture. And yeah, lovely depth of field as well. Just throwing that background out of focus again. But you can see the field behind it. You can see it's natural and it's in its environment. But yeah, there's a good sharp focus on the hair is the important thing. Lovely detail around the whiskers and around the eyes. And if you look in the eye, actually, of the hair itself, you can actually see a reflection of the sky in the eye of the hair. So the sharpness of that is pin sharp. We'll keep that, please.
This is Sneak Thief, a jackal looking to share.
Tell you what, that's not in the New Forest, is it? But it's a great picture. Really strong, dramatic story. It's nature in its wildest sort of raw state, if you like. Taking element at a time. The lion itself is, you know, is there commanding in your picture. It's sharpest around the muzzle, around the mouth. It is a little bit softer around the eyes. If you could have got that really sharp focus on the eye, I think it would have been absolutely superb. As it is, the sharpness is just below. It's only just off, but if you look at this picture, you will see that it's a little bit soft around the eyes and around the nose there. I enjoy the out of focus jackal in the background, really adds to the story, and you alluded to that in your title as well. I am confused by this bit here. I don't know if it looks to me like a tire, a bit of a tire. It could be, I don't know what it's there. It could be the leg of a photographer that sort of was sort of, and that could be the photographer. I don't know. I would be inclined, if you revisit this picture, to take that out because please tell me afterwards what it is, because it looks like a tire to me. And if it is a tire, it is there, but it's a horn, isn't it? It still looks like it still looks, I'm with you now. Thank you. No, I can see it now. Thank you. That's fine. Yeah. See, it shows judges can be stupid sometimes. That does look like a tire though. I can see that now. I apologize and thank you for pointing out to me. It's still a great picture. I love the drama of it. The only thing I'd say, and you can't go back and revisit it, you may be able to sharpen that up a little bit in topaz or something just to really bring that detail out. But it's a great picture and we'll keep it, please. Come in to go that side, that'll help. Just going to grab a quick drink, excuse me.
Yeah, that close to a lion.
But they all creep up like that.
Doesn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, it just fascinating.
How often do lions get extra
No, no,
snack? No?
it's not hot for them.
This is into the bed.
Thank you. Another good sports pitch. We've got this with the sports event pitch. I like to get the feeling of the event. It's not just machines and people. It's the whole everything that goes on in the day. And I think this one works really well because of that. I like the sharp focus on the leading cyclist there. I don't want to see these ones behind Sharp. Other people would say they prefer it that way. That's personal taste. I like the focus on him, and this is just supporting Cass, just following him around the bend there. Good strong angle as they lean into the bend there, gives you that diagonal, and the dynamic of that in your picture works well. Good advert for eBay as well. You could probably sell that to eBay. But the colors work well. Don't want to see this in mono because it is all about the colors and the vibrancy of the event itself. You've got detail in the track there as well. I like the continuation of the flow of the lines here, where the rubber is picked up or being deposited on the hot tarmac as well, and it gives us that lovely mirroring of the curve and the bikes coming around the corner. So we'll keep that one, please.
Is the road home in long shadows.
I'll just excuse me standing this side. I can't do it from that side for some reason. I have to stand this side. So, it is about the light, isn't it? And the light works beautifully in this picture. Lovely, soft, golden evening light. And the title describes it very, very aptly. Long shadows created by that low evening light, soon it would be disappearing over the horizon this way somewhere. But until that time, actually, it creates a very appealing glow on the landscape itself. I like this track, this road going up through the picture here. I just wonder if it would be maybe a little bit stronger if something was on the road just moving through the picture. I saw a picture that somebody did at Winchester Camera Club a few years ago. It was an oilseed rape field. And he saw the post van going up to deliver to the farm at the top, and he knew it had to come back again. So he waited and had this very similar to this, but it was all oilseed rape. Then he got the red van just coming down through the picture, and it worked really well. And I'm just thinking something just added on that corner there somewhere. If it's not there, it's not there, is it? And I'm not saying put it in there, but it would have been a bonus if you could have, if you were fortunate enough to wait long enough for something to come down there that added a stronger focal point within the picture. Okay, thank you very much.
Wending my way out.
Yeah, that's fine. I like to check now and again, just to make sure. This is interesting, isn't it? It's very abstract. I always like to check the photographer wasn't actually driving when they took this picture, because it's always don't do too much for your art. But no, I'm sure you weren't. And whether this was taken through a wet windshield or whether you've added this onto the picture and created the image, I don't know. But you get the feeling of a wet M25, don't you? You've got the two-way flows of the traffic, of the red going away from the white coming towards you. And I think when we all started photography, particularly with films many years ago, we all went out to do light trails, and you get some interesting light trails. But they became a little bit samey. I think having it sort of composited with this wet veil, if you like, I think creates quite an interesting and different feeling to it. I don't know about the bit of orange up there. You can be the judge of that yourselves. But I just think that's a little bit bright. It's in the wrong place. Is it adding to the picture? Probably not. Just try it with that bit cloned out, and I think it would make a slightly stronger effect. But it's still, yeah, I just think it's interesting. So we'll keep that as well, please. I'm keeping quite a few to have another look. It doesn't mean they're all going to get awards, but it's nice to have another look at some of them.
Winter stroll along the Bickle.
I think it's a good example of how point of view can add to change a picture. If you take this picture with a camera 5 feet off the ground straight ahead, looking at this young lady down the pathway, it has a different story from taking it down very low like this, where she becomes much more dominant against this. Although she's quite small in the picture, becomes much more dominant against that background there, and it creates a stronger imagery. You know, this is really drawing you into the picture. These really strong lines draw you through the picture, and to this sort of final point at the end here. And I think probably you've had to do this because you've got a very, very bright light over here. Nothing you can do about it. But by coming down a bit lower, you've managed to cut a lot of that away and giving us this really sort of bright glow on the vegetation this side. The color palette is very simple, isn't it? But it works. The oranges and the golds and the russet sort of browns on there work well with the young lady's coat as well. And the sun is picking up the detail of the color in the sky as well. So there's quite a bit of harmony and balance in the color in the picture, which I quite enjoy. You know, you come very close to losing things over here, but you haven't. You've held that in okay. So yeah, I think it's from a simple composition and a simple subject, you've got quite an impactful picture. But we'll pass on it. Thank you. Yes, please.
This is super cute signs of spring.
It's funny, you compare that to the hare. The hare is a much more streetwise sort of animal, isn't it? And this one looks much more innocent, probably a youngster anyhow. How long that would last in the meadow, I don't know. But yeah, you've got this feeling of springtime, and the cuteness of the bunny, I think, has come through quite well. Again, I like the space you've given around it, as with the hare. I think it's quite important to give us the feeling of location with that space there. Maybe a little bit too much foreground though, because I like the depth of field. Again, the very precise depth of field, giving us this focal plane in the middle where the rabbit actually is. Do we want 25% at the bottom of the picture? I don't know. I suggest that maybe you lost half of that. It would have the same effect, but wouldn't be quite so overpowering at the bottom there. Yeah, but yeah, I enjoy the lighting on there and the detail and the texture again in the rabbit's fur comes through very well. Thank you.
That's close enough. A leopard in it.
He doesn't look very happy, does he? And that's close enough. Hopefully, is the long end, far end of a long lens as well. But very natural feeling. Good focus on the front, the face where it needs to be. Losing a little bit of focus as he goes out the back there, but that really doesn't matter at all. I come back to the previous comments about clamping a subject into the frame. I would like to see a little bit more space at the top there, particularly. All right, we can get away with that just about because we've got a bit of space between the edge of the tail and the edge of the mount there. But and again, it's where it's mounted. I think it's just lost that little bit of extra, and it's a pity that is just cut through just a fraction at the top there. The background is very, very well. It is a bright sunny day, isn't it? It's in its natural environment, so there's nothing else behind there. Do we find that a little bit too strong as a background? I don't think there's much you can do about it, apart from maybe just darkening it down a little fraction. But it is where it is, and it is the feeling of a very hot summer or hot African hostile environment, and a very hostile looking subject as well. I like the moment you've caught where the teeth are just being bared there, and the fangs are just, you know, you can hear it snarling, can't you? So you have got that behavioural feeling in your picture. But I won't hold that one. Thank you.
Falling waters, the Eland Valley.
I remember doing my geography A-level field trip in the Eland Valley many, many years ago. Didn't look like that. It was a big lake and a dam, but still. It's a very pleasant picture, isn't it? I think maybe, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, pleasant can be good. It has a very pastoral sort of feeling about it. I really enjoy the way that the progress of the waterfall, you can plot it coming down through the picture, because within the sort of a little gully there, you've got a point of a bit of water there, bit of water there, bit there, bit there. So you can see that this is sort of making its way down through the ravine there into the pool beneath, and then continues down through there. I like your speed here, shutter speed. It's just And maybe that's what naturally occurred because you could be in quite sort of quite a shaded area here, but it's given us a little bit of texture and detail in the water, but also slightly artistic feeling about it. There's a little bit of milkiness as well, and I enjoy that. I think it's just about the right balance in the picture. It's a very carefully crafted picture because it's not necessarily easy to get a composition out of something as chaotic as this is, and you've got to get a bit of order into it as well. And I think by having these green grasses in the foreground, having the way that the rock ledge sort of flows around here and again draws us up through the picture, a parallel sort of path of something going up through there, up towards the light, it all works really, really well. So we'll keep that one, please.
There's no fun in Moscow.
Don't you believe it? I enjoy street photography. I do more and more of it myself, mainly because it means I don't have to get up early in the morning to do landscape photography. But no, what I like about street photography is you catch a moment of that is a one-off. It shows behavior, often shows a quite strong narrative. And all of this picture to me hinges around the fact you've got probably quite an old, destitute person, or maybe seen a bit down their luck, and they're clutching a Cyprus Airways duty-free bag, and that makes the picture. You've got a contrast there, a conflict there between this, what you perceive about this person, and what are they doing with the duty-free Cyprus Airways duty bag? Have they just come off the plane? They haven't, but you don't know. And it's just that little sort of a contrast and conflict that can make images interesting. It would work in monochrome. I don't think there's a lot of distracting color there, but you do have distracting colors in a picture like this. Monochrome would work because the writing would become more pronounced within your picture if you did that. And I like actually the space you've got around here. I was looking at this trying to decide whether there was too much building, but I think it's very much part of the environment that this person is working in, living in rather. People will say, pictures won't work if the subject is walking away from you, but you don't need to see the face here. If the subject is strong enough and the story is strong enough and it works as it is, I think that's absolutely fine. So we'll keep that one, please.
This is watching me watching them.
I like a bunch of meerkats, aren't they? I'll have to say now, I actually adore this picture, and it's really good. I hate rapeseed fields as well. They play havoc with my nose. But I just think to get this moment where you've got one deer poking its head up would be good, one deer looking at you would be good, but have all four of them just sort of this inquisitive, what's going on sort of look, a bit like the hare was earlier on. I think is a really well caught moment, and good for you for being there and knowing something's going to happen and getting the opportunity to take the picture. And they are skittish, aren't they? They're not going to stay there long. So you've got that beautifully in focus. They've popped up. You've probably pre-focused on an area or single point focus. You've got that beautifully sharp. You're very fortunate to get that separation between the four animals. It would be quite easy for them all to overlap each other, but you've got sufficient separation that they are four distinct animals in your picture. And you've got this, again, very specific focus point in the middle there, which here I like the extra base of the picture because I want to feel that they are in a big wide field and just having a look around. So I'll keep that one, please.
This is osprey with catch.
Beautiful birds, aren't they? And you've got a really good sharp focus on this, good capture. I always like the expression you get on the fish and things like this because it looks resigned to the fact that it's going to be an osprey's tea, basically. But you've got a good sharp focus on the eyes of the osprey, but also on the bird, on the fish beneath as well. And it's a moving subject, and it's probably flying towards you as well. So you've done well, even with modern modern camera tracking to keep that as detailed as you have done. I enjoy the detail in the plumage underneath there and on the top of the wing there. A good balanced exposure, really good sharp focus, as I said, on the eyes there. And this one has got enough space around it. I think to me that's just about perfect for a subject like this. You know, enough space just that it doesn't feel confined by the frame, but it fills the frame effectively as well. Thank you.
This is a meadow pipit.
Beautiful image, lovely capture. I could see this on a calendar, autumn calendar. This would be September probably, and you just got the lovely feeling of the fields is just going over into the autumn now. The thistles have seen better days. There's a few cornflowers or thistles or something in the background there as well. I love the punctuation of that color against the background. You can see the field behind there with the stalks of the crop. I think that makes a very complementary background to the bird. Catchlight in the eyes there's good detail. Not the most inspiring bird in the world. It's not doing a great deal, but I don't think it needs to be in this picture. I think it just is part of. It's not so much a picture of the meadow pipit to me, but of the meadow pipit and everything else around it. And I think because of that, I think it works well. So we'll keep that one, please.
This is a long-tailed tit busy feeding the family.
Oh, can't.
The penultimate.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was trying to see the family, but I can't. So I assume that's down there somewhere. Yeah, well caught. You've got the moment there, the beak full of insects or grubs or something. We assume with the title that there's a nest down there somewhere, and it's about to feed them. It needs to be a little bit sharper. So yeah, you've got the capture, you've got the bird, and this may be the only picture you could have taken. And I know when I started doing wildlife photography, and I didn't do it for long because I didn't have the patience, one of the things I remembered was that I read somewhere that take the first picture because it might be the only one you can get, and then if you can get a better one, do so. So this may be the only chance you've got to take this picture, and good for you if you did, because you got a good picture of the long-tailed tit. But in a photographic competition, which this is, it needs to be a little bit sharper, a bit more detail there. So it's something to work on to get that bit of sharpness, isn't it, really? But I think you've got the frame, the size of it in the frame well, and you've got the sort of environment of the fir cones around, which could have been quite a complicated background, but I think you've managed to separate the bird from the background well there. You've got a very bright area up there, which is unfortunate. Not a lot you can do about that, but you could perhaps put a gradient filter there just to darken it down a little bit. Okay, thank you. Okay.
This is wet day in cellophane.
And this is the only monochrome this evening, which is unusual. I see more and more monochrome in clubs, and this is the only one this evening. I think monochrome has its own quality. It brings something to images. Doesn't always work, depends on the subject, but it brings its own rules, if you like, to photography. And we don't want color. We don't want the distraction of color. We want to look at the texture, the shape, the line, the form. And that's all brought out in this picture very well. Good exposure, good sharp detail. You can see all the sort of the geometric graphic shapes of those windows come through very well in the picture. I like the way it draws you through the image. And streets like this will always look stronger if you've got this wetness on them. It brings out a texture and detail in them, and a little bit of sheen on them, which you won't get if they're dry. So good for you for going out in the rain and taking the picture. You do have a subject in this picture, to my eye anyhow, is this person on the bicycle. It's a matter of timing, and this is sort of nitpicking. I think this would have been a little bit stronger if you could have waited a couple of seconds and the cyclist was against the rest of the background. Sorry, the road was the background there, and the head and the shoulders didn't get a little bit lost against the building as they have done there. But the rest of it, I think, works really well. And as is the only monochrome, I'll hold that for a look with the rest, please.
contract, so we need to,